Okay. All right, hey everyone, my name is Austin, and today I wanted to create a tutorial video on how to make a custom date picker that will work for both iOS and Android devices using React Native. In our latest project, we moved from Expo to React Native, and we had some issues with the date picker we were using for Expo, and so whenever we switched to uh, pure React Native, and so we had to come up with our own solution. So this video hopefully should outline what our solution was, build a working prototype in an empty React Native application, and then go over each step as we rebuild it together. So let's go ahead and get started. I have a blank React Native project already set up. I have my iOS simulator running. I'm going to build it on iOS first, and then I'll actually run it on Android and show you the difference. There's two packages that we're using. We're using Moment.js, which I can show here. Moment.js, which is just a way of manipulating and showing dates. And then we have our React Native Community Date Time Picker, which is basically the power horse behind what we're using. So on iOS, what it should show is the little scroll view that we select the dates with, and then on iOS, and then on Android, it'll actually show kind of the calendar. So on iOS, though, we want to show it at the bottom, so we'll actually have it as a modal that'll pop up from the bottom and work like that. So some other setup that we have done already, whenever you install the React Native Community Date Time Picker, you need to run a pod install to get it to actually link with your React Native project, and that I think should be it. So let's go ahead and get started. So in our app.js, I just removed everything, and I have just a view and a text box right here. So what we're going to want to do is basically say this is some kind of like profile page or something that has a bunch of inputs, and then your name, your email, and then maybe like a birth date or something. What we would want to do here is have birth date, and then right under it we'll have like the input. And so for ours, we want our input to look like a text box and have a date inside of it. When you click on that date, the date time picker shows up. So let's go ahead and start working on the date picker. So here in I created a datepicker.js in the source components and datepicker.js folder. And let's go ahead and just start writing it. So we'll import React and then use state from React, and then a few React Native components we're going to use. We'll use modal, we'll use style sheet, we'll use text, touchable, highlight, and view, and finally platform from, oh my goodness, from React Native. Right, and then we're going to import our date time picker from the React Native Community Date Time Picker. And finally, we'll import moment from moment. Okay, so let's create our component by doing const custom date picker props will export defaults custom date picker. And we'll also do some default properties here by just doing custom date picker dot default props equals that, and leave those there. There's that, and then here we'll just return. For now, let's just do a view, and inside of it we'll just do a text that says our date picker text. Okay, we render that, and then in our simulator, well, actually, first we need to import it in our app.js. Import custom date picker from source components date picker, and then we'll add that right here as custom date picker, just like that. So, whoa, what just happened? Tried to register two views with the same name. What? Did you know? Where are we seeing that? RN Datepicker. That is our let's just restart that, see if that helps. Okay, here we go. That might have been because I had actually started this recording and got halfway through it, and then OBS crashed, and so here we are doing it again. Okay, so we got our date picker here, okay? So what we're going to want to do is actually format this to look like an input. And so what I would love from, well, you know what, before we do that, let's do some stuff here first. So this whole thing is going to be the input. So we're actually going to create it using a touchable highlight, okay? And then that's going to just be active opacity. We're just going to leave it 0. And then on press is going to be something like, or we'll just do a console log open date picker. So we'll see that when it's clicked. And then in here, we're actually just going to have the date, right? So what is the date? Moment, format, just yeah, let's make it a text object first, just like that. Okay, so now we got this. When we click on it, oh, sorry, open this. We'll see open date picker here. You can see it behind the simulator there in our logs. Okay, so let's format this to, yeah, let's format this to look like it, to look like an input. Okay, so we'll do style, and actually before we do that, we want to be able to customize this input based on anywhere in the app. So we actually want to set that here. So in our custom date picker, we'll set a property called text style, and we'll actually make it look good there. So let's do something like padding vertical. We'll do 15. We'll do padding horizontal. We'll do 10. Then maybe border color gray, and then border width 1, right? Sweet. Border width 1, and so our text style is actually what's going to be passed to the date picker here. So what we can do is go const, text style from the props, and then we'll make sure that it's actually being defined here as text style, and we'll just make it empty, so in case there's nothing, sent to it, and we can give text style here. Okay, so now it looks like, yay, we got a nice little input looking thing here. I'm going to go ahead and do a view around this. It's going to have a style of margin horizontal. We'll just do 20 for now, and there we go. Okay, cool. So now this is our input, right? So if you have a profile page with a bunch of different inputs here, here's our date time picker. So we click on it, and it should be showing open date picker down there at the bottom. Cool. And it's now fully customizable, so if you want it to look like other inputs in your app, there you go. All right, cool. So now what we need to do next is actually we need to create some variables. So let's do a const date, and we'll do set, I can't type right now, set date as a method that can change it, and then use state, and we'll just do moment there. And so now we can actually change this moment to date, and then we'll do const show, set show, which is going to actually show and hide our date picker. So use state false by default. Perfect. Okay, so now we actually need to start building the date picker. So here we'll do view here just as a, because a touchable highlight can only have one child inside of it. And so here is our text input, like we said, and we can actually change this to be something like a little bit more clear. Okay, and there we go. So now what we want to do for iOS specifically is to show a modal from the bottom of the screen. Okay, so let's go ahead and define our modal here. Okay, and give it some properties like transparent is true. We'll give animation type is going to be, let's just do slide. We'll do visible is going to be our show variable. Supported orientations, let's do portrait. That's all we care about right now. And then on request close, okay, we're actually going to change the show to be set show false, okay? And now that we actually have a variable for opening and closing our date picker, we can actually change this to be set show is true. Awesome. Okay, so there's our modal. So inside of the modal, we're just gonna make one view of flex 1. And so inside of this, we need to, okay, so the whole thing, when it comes up from the bottom on iOS, is going to be one clickable object, okay? So it needs to be a full-on touchable highlight here. So we'll do touchable highlight here. And this is going to have a few styles to it. So we'll do styles here. We'll do a flex of 1. We'll do an align items to be flex end, and I'll show you why in a little bit. And then our flex direction is going to be row. So we also need our active opacity to be equal to 1. We've got visible also needs to be set to show, and then our on press here. So when it's pressed, we need to actually, oh, you know what, I'm sorry. So this part of it, this touchable highlight, is essentially the whole screen. So when we show it, we're going to completely overlay the whole screen. And when we click on this part of it at all, we're actually going to close it. So it's like whenever you click on outside of the date picker, okay? That's what this touchable highlight is. So inside of it, though, we have another touchable highlight, which is going to be the actual bottom part positioned at the bottom. So we'll do an underlay color of white. We're going to do style. Let's just give it a few styles here. Flex 1. We'll do border top color of just what, E9099, which is like a light gray. We'll do border top width, which will be 1, and just leave it at that. Then here we got our on press here, which is basically just anytime you're selecting anything, it's going to be console log date picker clicked. Okay. All right, cool. So now we need to wrap all this into a view. Okay. And we'll give it some styles too. Style and background color of white. Do a height of, so this is the height from the bottom up, which is just 256. It's a nice even number. Overflow, we'll do hidden, and that should be all for the styles on that. And then here is our actual view style. Let's give it a margin up top of like 20 pixels, And here's our actual date picker for iOS. Okay, so we're going to have our date time picker using our React Native community date time picker. And we have some variables that we're going to give it here. So time zone, offset minutes, just give it 0. We got a value of, so we need to use date object, and we'll actually just use our date object here. So our value is going to be the date, our state level date variable. Mode, we can give it a few things, but we'll just do date instead of time. And then we got minimum date, which is going to be a new date of moment. Subtract, let's do like 120 years since it's a birthday. 120 years dot format. So the date object can take this format, which is your 2020 08 21, which is today's date. I don't know why it was so hard to say. And we got a maximum date. Well, I'm sorry, it'll actually be 2010, but whatever. New date of moment, format. So our minimum date is 120 years ago. Our maximum date is today, since you can't have a birthday after today. On change, and then we'll do, let's just do an on change method. We can create an on change method here, const on change, and it's going to be event like date, and then what we're going to do is actually just set our date to be the selected date here, and that's it. That's all we have to do there. Actually, that's not true. We need to wrap it in a moment selected date. Okay, so now our date is always going to be a moment object. Our date time picker is always going to be using a new date object, and that should be it. So there we go. So now you can see it down here at the bottom. Doesn't look super great yet, but we're not completely done with it. Okay. I also think that I might be in dark mode. Yeah, so I'm not really sure why dark mode is throwing me sideways there, but that might be something we have to debug here in a little bit. So here's our date picker. So now we need to see our, and look, we can't go past today, and we can't go past 1910, not 2010. What am I talking about? 1900. Okay. So we need our cancel button and our done button here. So now what we can do is add those by doing, let's do a touchable highlight here. Okay. And we'll give it underlay color of transparent. We'll do on press, and then we'll actually do like an on press cancel method. And then we'll do some styles. Let's actually define some styles here. So we'll do something like styles.btn text, and then we'll do styles.btn cancel. And then down here we can do const styles equals style sheet dot create, and we'll do btn text. It's going to be a few things, and then we got, what do I do? btn cancel. So button text can be position of absolute. We'll do a top of 0. We'll do height of 42. Padding horizontal 20. Flex direction. Row. Align items to be center, and then justify content center too. Okay, and our button cancel will just be left of 0. And then our button done, btn done is just going to be a write with 0. All right, cool. So now, that should give us, oops, we can do a text here, and then this should just be cancel. Ooh, hello. Oh yeah, on press cancel. So we'll write that in a second. Canceled. There we go. So open it up. We got a cancel button over here. Canceled. And then we're just going to duplicate this. Oops. Duplicate it. We'll do done. And then we'll do btn done. And then done. And it'll be over here on the right now. Okay, so now we got our 2 buttons. Now we actually need to link those buttons up to actually do stuff. So when you hit cancel, it should make this go away. When you hit done, it should save whatever the actual birthday is, right? So if we hit done there, it should now be this date. If you hit cancel, it should go back to August 21st. So let's start writing those real quick. We can do const on cancel press, and then const on done press. Come on. Over here we can do on cancel press and on done press, right? All right, so what needs to happen whenever we cancel? So when we cancel, we need to essentially set the date back to the default date, right? So set date back to moment. Well, and actually that's a good point. So we don't actually have our default date yet. So one of the properties that we are going to need is actually going to be a default date. Okay, so say we don't want today every time. We're going to want a default date and moment default date here, and we'll make sure this is coming over here. Default date, going to be moment, and then let's do an on date change, since we know that's going to be a method that we have here. Okay, so over here in our custom date picker, we can actually go default date, and then we can give it whatever we want, right? So let's just do this. Let's just try to do, I don't know, 1985 0101, January 1st, 1985. So now we can give it a default date. So say you're getting data from an API or something, you can dump it in here, and now we've got our default date. If you don't have this, it should automatically go back to today. Of course, now it's cached, so we'll just leave it. Okay, so now what happens whenever we hit the cancel button? Well, we need to set the date to be moment of default date. Okay, and we need to set the show to be false. Okay, so let's try that. Come here, we change it to December 30th. We hit cancel, should switch it back. There we go. Now on our on press done, we need to actually tell our component that's creating that's using this component that the date has changed, and then actually hide the date picker as well. So what we can do here is go props.onDateChange, and we'll give it the date, and then we'll set the show to be false. Okay, great. And the reason why this is working is because whenever we, here in our datetime picker, whenever we change the date, so here if I do February 1st, 1992, now the state level variable date has now actually changed to be this, okay? So when I hit done, I don't need to actually set the date because it's already set. All I need to do is tell our component that, hey, we're done now. And then hide it. So now, clicked away. So you hit done. Did that work? On done press. On done press. Show. Let's do this. Our on date change. We got a value. Console log. Date changed. And we can do value. There we go. Okay, well let's do, well, there you go. So that's a timestamp. So the date has changed now. So if I change it again to 1905, there's a different timestamp. There we go. So now we're telling our component that we're done, hiding it, and then if we hit cancel, we're actually setting it back to our default date. Things you could do is when you hit cancel, it actually changes it back to the date that you last had. But again, this is coming from our platform, which is showing a profile page, editing a bunch of values, and then when you hit cancel, it actually should reset it back. Okay, so what's next? Now, okay, I believe that's all we have for iOS, okay? So if we were to open this in Android, it would not work the way we expected. So let's go ahead and actually do that. So I'm gonna close this out real quick. I'm gonna pause the recording. And okay, so now we got our Android app open in our Android emulator here. And so whenever we click on this, we should expect it to show, where's our Chrome window? We should expect it to show the same thing down here. So on our iOS, we had the thing come up from the bottom, and so for Android, we should see the calendar view appear, correct? Well, what actually happens whenever we select it is actually going to, it's going to show that calendar, but it's actually going to show up this modal down here at the bottom. Well, that's because the modal should actually only appear on iOS. So how do we get rid of that? Well, lucky for us, we have a platform here, and we can just do OS equals iOS, right? And if it's iOS, then we show the modal. And that's simple enough, right? Great. So, oops. Did I go too far? Modal. Oh, yeah. Gotta close it. Great. So cancel that. Okay, so now we click it. Oh no, what's happening? Well, the problem now is that we actually have hidden our date time picker here inside of the modal. So what I think we should do is actually abstract this out to be in its own little render. So we'll do render date picker. Okay. And we'll do that here. Const render date picker. And turn, just like that. And so now on iOS should work exactly the same, and on platform.os does not equal to iOS. We can just do we can just render the date picker, because Android is a little bit simpler when it comes to this. So now, so cancel that. So, whoa, hello. What's happening here? Oh, that's right. So we're not actually telling it to hide our date picker. So now we actually do our show variable. So now show should be false. Cancel that. Okay, let's restart. Let's go ahead and just restart this, because I believe we're kind of stuck in limbo here. Close that. We'll do yarn Android. Let this run for a second. Okay. So now, when we click on it, it should now render our date picker. Same thing, we can hit 10, 60, whatever, cancel it. Oh no, what happened? Well, the problem is that there's a few minor discrepancies. So the biggest thing is the on change event. So we actually are going to have to write our own, a different on Android change event. And what it should do is date, same thing like that. And then what we'll do here is actually, what I figured out is to actually set the show to be false first, and then check to see if a date was selected. So if there was no, date selected, it should just show, it should just hide it. And if there was, we can set the date to be moment selected date, same as the other one, and then we'll also at the same time do props on date change to be our selected date. And so the reason why is because the on Android date change is all the events get fired through there instead of just them being individual. So now what we need to do here is actually go platform.os equals to iOS. If it is, we'll do on change. Otherwise, we'll do on Android change. Okay. So let's try this one now. Cancel. Okay. Okay, so let's do August 1st. Okay, there we go. Let's do August 9th, cancel. Stays August 1st, August 14th, cancel. There we go. And that should be everything. So just to quickly go over what we did here, we created a custom date picker that uses the React Native community datepicker. What we did is essentially created an input box. It's kind of just a text box that looks like an input that you can click on. That's actually going to show the date picker. We're going to show it as a modal for iOS, okay, and make it look like regular modal does with the cancel and the done buttons, and we can customize those and make them look and kind of interact however we want. And on Android, we're just going to render the date picker that is default to the community date time picker. And also, what we can do is we can give it some text styles, so we can change these around to be whatever we want, right? So if we wanted rounded corners, we could do that. If we wanted to introduce some kind of custom CSS to it, we could do that from this layer instead of doing it inside the date picker. So say in two different spots in the app, we're going to use the same date picker, but they look vastly different. And so now we can apply those styles to the custom date picker instead of assuming that they're all going to look the same across the app. We can send a default date to be whatever we want, and we also have an on date change property that allows us to interact with whenever the date gets changed, whenever it gets saved. We actually can now use that data. So say after you've selected everything in your profile page, all that data gets saved to a I don't know, to the state or something, and you can save all that at the end. And that's pretty much it. Hopefully this was helpful, and yeah, have a good one.